are listening to Midlife with Courage, where women in midlife come for inspiration, motivation, and sometimes a little education to help them live more boldly. Don't forget to hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Midlife with Courage. I am Kim Benoit, your host, and I'm so happy to have you all here. I'm also very happy to have my guest with me here today. Her name is Stephanie Anderson. Welcome to the podcast, Stephanie.
Kim, it's so great to be with you today.
I'm really excited to talk to you. Stephanie and I know each other in real life, we could say. Today we are going to talk about Stephanie and her revelations that she recently had about a certain number. So Stephanie, we're just going to jump right into it. You recently turned the big 50. How did that go? I understand you had some revelations. Tell us about that.
It's one of those things that I still can't believe it. When I have to fill out a form and it asks for like what age category, I'm still kind of in denial as I'm going into that, the numbers that start with a 5. But with each of my birthdays, it always seemed older. Like when I turned 30, when I turned 40, when I turned 50, it always seemed old. And I always wanted to just embrace that because I feel like it's kind of sad in our culture that we don't really embrace age. There's so many other cultures where it's like with that comes wisdom and this reverence, right? And I think women should own their age. I think they should be like, there is so much life that has been lived. There is so much we can learn from one another. And so I've always liked to, when I've turned an age that ends in a 0, do something like to celebrate it, to mark that time, and to be open about talking about it. Yeah, I'm a little bit shy and about like necessarily being like incredibly like wanting to tell everybody, especially
Sure.
because you know, some of my friends are quite a bit younger. My kids, I have young kids, and so sometimes I'm interacting with, with people that are quite a bit younger than me. My boys are 8 and 10, and I was older having kids, and so sometimes I don't wanna be seen as that, "Oh, she's so much older." Like, I still wanna be able to relate to people, but I also am like,
Right.
"But I'm 50." Like, do you ever, see that Saturday Night Live skit with I think it was Molly Shannon, and she's like, "I'm 50 and I can kick and I can flex." And she's just, like, making
Yes.
fun of being 50. That's kinda
Yes.
how I wanna embrace it, right? Like, it's a new
Right.
decade, and with that, I feel like there's more boldness, there's more recognition of how I wanna show up, how being authentic to who I am, and wanting to show up in the different aspects of my life in the best way that I possibly can. And also being real when things aren't great, like being able to ask for help. Right. Because so much of my life has been like this, oh, independent woman, I can do it. I can take charge. I can do everything. But really, the beauty in like asking for help and people wanna help, and I wanna help other people, right? So there's just so many other things. There's just this kind of like wisdom. I mean, there's not this like amazing flip that switches at, when the clock turns, birthday
Yeah.
50 time, but just kind of like leading up to it. And so one of the things we did that was really special is we went to New York City with my husband and my 2 boys, and we celebrated there, which was really special. So that was the thing we did. I'd spent quite a bit of
Oh,
time working in New York City. I love the city, and I was able to do a half marathon there. But that was the thing to be able to like mark this special moment
sure.
and make it special for the family as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm excited about it. It's also one of those things that yes, in some ways it feels kind of old, especially when things are happening like waking up and having, like, a sleep injury. Have you ever had that where you, like, wake up and your, like, neck is really sore and you're something like, am I at that age where,
Yes.
sleeping is invoking these aches and pains? I'm like, "This is
Yes.
crazy."
Yeah, or you bend over to reach for something and your back goes, "No!" or goes out, like, "What is going on here?"
Yes, so sometimes those reminders that happen or even yesterday, I cracked a tooth, a crown, eating a sugar snap pea of all things. So, like, just these things, I feel like some of these, like, kind of old people things that are happening, but just being like, "Okay, that's what it is," and you know what? We have a choice, like, we can choose these things. I'm gonna turn 50 no matter what. Might as well embrace it with joy and enthusiasm because it's
Yeah.
not gonna change if I'm, feel otherwise about it. And I think that's so true of so many other things with life. We have a choice on how we want to approach it. Now, I say that now if you followed me around or you asked my family, right? That's not by no means saying I always do that, but I try. And that's one of the things I do to try to reset myself too is be like, okay, I have a choice here. I have a
Yeah.
choice in this. So
Yeah, I think you're right about there's no switch that we just flip, but it's like a journey that
yeah.
they're on. That's how I'm looking at it myself as I'm gonna oh gosh, I'm gonna be 60 in 2 years or next year. Yeah, I turned
Own it,
59 this
sister.
year.
Own it.
Like, yeah, and part of me is like, "I'm gonna be 60. Hey, I look pretty good, and I'm doing pretty
Yeah,
good, and but I'm on this journey." And so, to me, when I got a little bit I always say I'm farther along in my life journey instead of saying older,
yeah, I love
but
that.
it's like, there's all these things that I can do now, and it's finding new things, but okay, we'll get back to you, though.
No, but I love that, and in 60, I would never guess, and I
Yeah,
love that you're owning that and that you're sharing that because more
yeah,
people need to do that and be an inspiration
right.
to others.
Right, right. Now let's go back a little bit because you're very well spoken, and I it's probably because you've had 25 years of experience with executive coaching. And you also are doing some health and wellness other coaching. So tell us about this career, and we talked about this before we hit record, but you've got two different areas in your life that you're kind of bringing together now.
Yeah, yeah, well, thank you so much for your kind words. I just feel like I sometimes get so excited and I go in so many different directions with things. Yeah, so I even as like a young girl, I always knew I wanted to do something in business. At one point I thought maybe law, but I ended up um going into consulting, working with a global consulting firm. I was there for 24 years and, had so many wonderful opportunities. I traveled all the time, but I was laser focused on work and loved it, but also reached a point where I was like, huh, is this really what my I says I'm a Bible believing Christian, and one of the things is like I'm thinking, is this what God has for me? Does He want me to be on a plane every week, and visiting different clients, and doing all these things? Uh, there was a few changes that I made at one point. I'd always had an interest in health and wellness, and so I made the conscious decision to start working towards certifications, which led to another certification, which led to a doctorate in natural health, and I love learning. So I made this decision a few years into my career that I said, I am going to take this on, but it is going to be fully because I love it. The moment brings stress into my life, I'm done. I made that a commitment to myself because I already was working in a job where it was not uncommon to work 60, 70-hour weeks, being on a plane twice, sometimes more. And so this was something I was doing for me. It was kind of my hobby outside. And I that passion just grew. My interest in that was my own personal struggles and my own personal journey looking for answers to help myself because I had struggled with weight, with body image, and always had an interest in nutrition. And so I did that. That was an intentional thing that I did. And then fast forward in my mid 30s, I reached another point. I was 35 was the age where you could adopt a child as a single woman.
Mm,
And I knew I always had a heart for wanting to be a mother. Marriage scared me. My parents divorced when I was 18 and I just was really kind of gun shy when it came to relationships. Had dated, had some crazy, not great experiences, some funny experiences, but just was really like, again, one of those things where I'm like, Lord, I don't know if you have someone for me. I, I do have a desire to be a mother. So I started going down the path of exploring what that might look like to adopt. And I also made a change from my job where I wasn't with the same firm, but I was in a position where I wasn't traveling all the time, where I had more stability. I even got a dog. To make this decision, I actually had taken a leave of absence. I took 3 months off because I just needed to step back because sometimes I found with myself when I'm in the thick of things, it's hard to make a decision. It's really hard to make a
mhm,
decision, and so
mhm,
I had to just take a step back and kinda really unplug, disconnect from things, and different I took a different position, and then within I think it was within 6 or 9 months, I met my husband, and he's older than I am, and so I joke around that it moved very, very quickly. Like, we literally met in February, we were engaged in April, married in August,
wow,
pregnant in October. And then so I was 38 when I got married, 37 when I met him, and
yeah,
then we had our first son, when I was 39 and my second son at 41. So it was one of those things that, like, it waited so long, and actually we joke around, we're like both my husband and I are like, we thought our families and friends had kind of like just sort of been like, "Oh yeah, they're just gonna be always single. That's just how they are." And
Yeah.
so that was then a major shift, and it's amazing how much then being a wife, being a mom, and just reflecting on that. I mean, even like thinking about our conversation today as I was like reflecting last night, and I'm just like, I am so incredibly grateful and blessed. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional here. With
That's okay.
with what this is, like, with what 50 is. Like, if someone would've told me at 50, like, I'm in a marriage that I it's a marriage is hard work, but it is beyond what I ever could have imagined. It is beyond what kind of I had seen and noticed,
Mhm.
and it's a beautiful thing, and being a mom, I also realize as a boy mom, like, that the Lord has a sense of humor that I have 2 boys that like to wrestle all the time and are very physical, and I love them dearly, but it's just a different, different than a girl dynamic, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but just those shifts that were made and just kind of those learnings that happen. And, I think 50 is about like just even tuning in more, learning more about who I am. What does God want me to do with my life? What is my purpose?
Yeah.
How can I help other people? How can I use our talents and gifts? I love like, for example, working with my clients on recognizing what are their strengths, what are their unique qualities, because especially as women, we take them for granted. We kind of brush them
Yes.
off. We're like we play we're humble about it, which great. Humility is an awesome thing, but like there are these gifts that we were given, like sister, use them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and sometimes because they come easily to us, we just take them for granted and we assume it's easy for everybody else. So helping especially women recognize that is just such a wonderful thing.
Every week on Midlife with Courage, we share stories that remind us we're not alone. Now, I'd love to take that conversation one step further. It's Not Just You is a 4-week workshop where we'll discover the ways we've learned to shrink ourselves and practice taking up space with courage and confidence. Because listening can inspire us, but practicing creates lasting change. If you're ready for that next step, click the link in the show notes to join the priority list. I hope you'll join me this September. Yeah. I think too, there's outside forces too that don't exactly support when we our strengths as women too.
Yeah.
Especially when we're hearing messages like, "Oh, you need to look younger, you need to be thinner, you need to be this and that and the other." So I found that a lot of women in this age, they start to turn inward and they do start realizing that, wow, I do have these strengths and I
Yeah.
can do this and that. And I try to do that. I like to point that out to my guests or whoever I talk to as well with this podcast. But I just think that's so important to really emphasize that
Yeah.
as
That
we
is
go
so
through.
true. That is so
Yeah.
true. And realizing the lies we believe. I mean, that's
Mm,
one of the things. 50 years old, I'm still recognizing lies that I believe, things
yeah.
that culture tells us, things that narratives inside my own mind, right? And
Mhm.
I think being able to recognize that is so huge. I even think of like with my relationship with food. I always had told myself, oh, I just can't moderate. I either have to like totally not have something or I'm just going to binge on everything, like sugar, for example.
Mm,
And that was a lie. Right? That was a
yeah.
lie, like, that I can moderate, I
Yeah.
can lose I can, like, and so being able to even these little things, and sometimes it's these little things that just seem very subtle and, like, no big deal, that
Mhm.
can actually kinda steal some joy or steal some progress from us. And
Mhm.
there's one of the things I think it's always important to have things that we can anchor to, especially when we're in moments where we're stressed or we're overwhelmed or we feel like we're stuck. And one of the things is that around that idea of truth, there's a Bible verse, Philippians 4:8, and it's like, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever the first thing is true. And I think it's kind of as a checklist. It's like whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is praise. Like it goes through a list of things. And I always I think about that verse and I get to true and I don't have to go any further because it's like usually whatever I'm hung up on, if I really look at it, it's either not true or I don't know that it's true. I'm making an assumption about something. I'm building my own kind of narrative that I'm not sure of. And I mean, don't we all do that sometimes where we start to
Yes.
fill in the gaps and we're like, wait, is this even actually true? I don't know. What if we
Right.
assume something different? What if we assumed it was something completely different?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And that brings us to a new term that you taught me today is ask formation.
Yes, affirmation. So, a lot of people think of affirmations, right? Those little things that we can tell ourselves, those things that we can remind ourselves of, which I'm not opposed to those at all. But one of the things I think takes it up a notch is something called an ask formation.
Mhm.
So that would be posing a question to yourself because it's also interesting how our mind engages when we're asked a question and we present an idea that forces us to think of something. So, let's say I'm really nervous about going to meet with a client. Actually, this happened to me earlier in the week. I was coaching someone who is a PhD in industrial and organizational psychology. So like they
My
are like an expert in coaching. I started to kind of get in my own head about it. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, what am I gonna bring to this person that they don't already have?"
right.
And what I changed that instead of saying, what if I totally mess up? What if they think this is a total waste of time? And I said, switched it and said, what if this is incredibly beneficial for them? What if I can share just one thing that just changes the way that they look at something? What if I can remind them of something that they need to be told, right? And so being able to change it shifts the way you're looking at it. I mean, even like I feel my posture shifting, right? As
Yeah.
even like thinking of it that way. And that's another thing that's amazing is how changing our posture can change our mindset, right? Like you do the Wonder Woman pose for 30 seconds. You can't tell me you don't feel stronger and, like, more, like, ready you can go conquer things, right? So,
Right.
these amazing little tiny things that you can do that other people may not even you could do them so discreetly, people would never know, but, like, the things you can do to help keep yourself on that path and help if you start to realize, "Hey, I'm not going in the direction where I wanna be going," or I could make some tweaks and improve.
Right. Right. And I'm a big proponent of asking questions, and this is right in that wheelhouse as well. Like, what if this would happen? Yeah, I love that. That's just it. Totally made me feel like sit up a little higher or a little bit more too. But I love that. Can we just go back a little bit too? Because I want to ask a little bit more about. You mentioned earlier you made a choice to focus on yourself and things that didn't bring you joy or that you were passionate about. You didn't do it anymore. And it sounds like that happened kind of at a younger time than I would have expected but just based on my own personal experience. But did you get any pushback to that from your workplace, your other people in your life?
I you know, it's something that I have to be intentional about. I really have to be intentional about having the focus on the joy piece of it in terms of I would say not selfish is the wrong word, but, like,
Mhm.
I'm very much a people pleaser. I wanna be a good girl. I wanna do what's right. Like, I am the person that's likely to fall into kind of workaholic tendencies, like to be really busy. All these things that again can be strengths, but sometimes they can get to be too much. So where I've made these conscious decisions, it's where it's really been through reflecting and prayer and really pausing. There's so much power in the pause. So much power. It's so funny too, is like I feel like everything now where I'm looking, everything is about perimenopause and menopause and all that. So it's like different kind of pause. But that's another thing with like the age. Like embrace it. Like there's
Yeah.
something amazing about just pausing. Just like
Yeah.
slow down and even thinking about you think of when people respond to something, there's that stimulus and then there's the response. If you can put some more space between that, right? So that's one of the things I've worked on, for example, like if I get stressed out, like the stimulus was kind of really busy with work. The response was go to the pantry, grab some quick snack, and then get back to work. But when I've been able to put more space between that, create more of a pause and be like, wait, is that really what I need? Maybe if I just have 5 minutes, I should step outside. Maybe there's something I can do that would serve me better, that would be more supportive of how I wanna be, how I wanna show up. And so just that intentionality. And there are times, to your question about pushback, there's absolutely times, and that's hard, especially being someone who wants to make everybody else happy.
Mhm.
And, I say that as a huge as something that I've struggled with is sometimes, like, advocating for what I want or what I need, especially in certain settings, and so being able to be very get to the point where I could be very specific about what I needed, and so there was an instance, "Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I need to take some time off," and being able to be specific, and sometimes that can be challenging too, because I'm usually pretty, like, easygoing things in terms of willingness to do different things, so sometimes being very specific about what I need or what I want can be challenging.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always gonna be pushback, and that's why I think it's so important to have that certainty
Mhm.
in our own identity and who we are, and then the decisions come more easily because you make decisions that are aligned with your identity.
Right.
I mean, even, like, I think about it with my journey with food and with weight, if my narrative in my mind and if my identity is around being overweight, not being able to control myself around food, not liking how I feel, not looking how I look, not appreciating my body, then no matter what I do, I can go through the actions of eating right and exercising and losing weight, but in the at the end of the and this is one of the reasons why maintenance, like, I just heard yesterday someone quote there's all different statistics that after 2 years, 97% of women, like, have undone the progress that they've made with weight loss, sometimes
Wow.
shorter than that, and I think a lot of that has to do with identity because we need to first be able to recognize and appreciate and in our mind be able to see who we are and who we're capable of being, but sometimes we're too busy beating ourselves up. That then when we try
Yeah.
to make changes in our lifestyle, it that don't match truly how we feel inside. So that's why I think
Mhm.
that inner work is such an important piece of
Yeah.
any change, right? Because it's
Right.
so important.
Yeah, and it goes back to we want a quick fix to everything that we need changed, and yeah, we can do the newest diet or take the whatever pills or whatever, but if you don't fix what's going on inside, it's not gonna stay, it's not gonna stick.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, I love that you're
absolutely.
sharing that message as well. So, now you are taking health and wellness, in my mind, really far because you're doing marathons. Why are you doing marathons?
And if someone would have told me that I would be so excited about running at this stage in my life. If someone would have told me in my 30s, I wouldn't have believed it. But that's been an interesting journey. So after my second son was born, my husband and I, it's crazy how it started. We started with this little wellness challenge with each other. We kind of put together a little sheet of when we exercised, when we ate well, we would put, like, a few dollars in a jar, and then when we got enough money, we were gonna go and take a cooking class. Remember Cooks of Crocus Hill in Stillwater?
Oh,
We're
okay.
gonna take a cooking class there because it's one of the things we enjoy to do. So we're like, "Okay, this is something special that we can, we could do." And so I started with just starting with, like, walk, run on the treadmill, and then that gradually increased, and then I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna run a 5K," and then I had a goal time for a 5K, and then that just kept increasing, and then my brother is an avid, much more hardcore than I am, like, marathon and ultra marathon runner, and so
Mhm,
it's been a great bonding for us, but just kind of this grew, and my time running was the time when I could it was kind of my me time, especially with 2 really little kids and just sometimes needing that time and recognizing how much better I felt when I exercised, how I
mhm,
showed up better as a mom, as a wife, I felt better. It was also my time to listen to podcasts, listen to sermons, listen to audiobooks, or just listen to nothing and just be, right?
mm,
And so that just kind of grew, and I'm a type of person that if I'm gonna kind of go full force with things, so it's pretty
mhm,
quickly then I was like, "Huh," well, I kept increasing the distance.
mhm.
And then, in 2019, I was like, "You know what?" I'd done a marathon in my 20s, and then in 2019, I was like, "Oh, maybe" 2018, I was talking to my brother, I'm like, "Do you think I could do a marathon?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah, absolutely." So he actually ran it with me and was kind of
Aw,
my encourager, my support, so that was really special. Then it's been since then, I've been I really enjoyed it. The marathon is not necessarily my favorite distance. I think 10 mile is kind of my favorite.
mhm,
But I'm right now in the process of training for my second marathon within like an 8-month period, which I'm discovering is too close. So I'd had to do the things I'd had to, I've, it's kind of funny because this is like an example of where I've had to shift my mindset with it because like I had a 15-mile run a couple weeks ago, and I have a 20-mile run coming up this weekend. And on this 15-mile run, Kim, I felt miserable. I was like, "Why am I doing this?" And one of the things I am doing that I do get excited about, and this is where I had to think about, is I'm doing it to raise money for an organization that supports veterans. And so to me, like that community, that cause, that's one of my motivators. And that if you talk about strengths, like that's one of the things that is a driver, like is that strong belief
Sure.
in something. And so I had to reshift. I had to take some time and be like, okay, I'm gonna be running this marathon regardless. What can I do? Like I'm learning, yep, it
Hmm.
was a little bit too soon given I just ran one last fall, but what can I do? And so that's where I started to explore different training patterns, different. So this one I'm in my training, I'm doing intervals of 4 minutes running, 1 minute walking to mix it up a little bit. That's a little bit more aligned. I'm not going for a time goal this time. I'm just like, I just want to finish. I just want to have fun. I just want to like cross the finish line with some form of a smile on my face, right? And so running has been there's so many things that I feel like I can put in the perspective of running, right? Like, for example, you can be on the idea of run the mile you're in, like the mile that you're in, like not thinking too far ahead because I've also one of my training runs. This was a few years ago. It was an 18-mile run. I felt miserable, like physically awful. It ended up being one of my favorite runs because I ended up feeling better through the course of it. And I think things like that can happen in life as well. Like just because the mile we're in might not be comfortable or feel good, there's things that when you just keep moving forward, things can get better. Sometimes they get worse, right? But, like, being able to recognize that and just kind of the patience that it's taught me as well, and just the challenge is really fun too. So
Yeah.
I love the number of people that I've been able to encourage to just give running a try. There are so many, I think it can be intimidating, especially if someone hasn't. Like they feel like they have these pictures in their mind of like these like really fast people. But like if there's a woman that's interested in getting into like running, there's heart rate training where you're not looking at a pace, you're just saying, where's my heart rate? How do I keep myself in the right zone where you're walking if your heart rate gets too high. There's also the method that I'm using is called the Galloway method, which is run walk, which,
Hmm.
some people can start, they can say, I'm going to walk for 5 minutes and I'm going to jog slowly for 30 seconds. And then they gradually change that. And then it's just, so there's a lot of friends I've had that have been like more on the, maybe really avid walkers or other types of exercise that they like and have really, warmed up to running because of that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
good for you. I applaud you. I have run before. I did a half marathon at Disney. If you ever want to do that, yeah, I will never do it again, but I enjoyed it while I did it.
Yeah, did you wear a
So,
costume? Disney, a lot of
no,
people dress okay, you weren't like
yeah,
Tinkerbell?
there's a lot of running in tutus and all that, but yeah, and they're very strict about falling behind a certain time because they
Okay.
run it before the parks open.
Oh,
So everyone has to be done by a certain time, and if you're not done or if you're falling behind, they take you away. You're done. Like you can't even finish. Anyway, that's a whole other story. We
keep
won't
it
get into that.
moving.
I'll tell you about that someday. Um, but I love one of the things that you said. Besides, I love run the mile you're in. I love that. That's an amazing concept and an idea. Being present where you are and what you're doing. Another thing that you said that stood out to me was when you were struggling. You said, "I'm going to do it anyway. So how can I make it, better, different?" A lot of us probably would have said, I could quit. I could just stop. But telling yourself, "I'm doing it anyway," just to me is
Yeah,
that mindset. I'm doing it, so here's
yeah,
how here's what I need to do. I love that.
yeah. Well, thank you. So much of it has to get back to the reason why we do it. And
Mhm.
so getting back to that, like, and that was part of it. I had to anchor back to that because there was part of me that doesn't want to do it. Or I said, hey, maybe I'll do the half instead of the full. But there's a few things. So it's Grandma's Marathon and it's their 50th anniversary. 50, right? That's a special
There you
number this
go.
year. So that was part of it. And then also the organization that I'm running it with. Like, I don't wanna let down. I've been raising support for veterans. I don't wanna let the organization down. I don't want to let the people down.
Yeah.
And so again, it's one of those things where, like I talk about, there's almost like these tendencies around wanting to not let other people down, right? Which
Mhm.
can result in people pleasing. That could be a negative thing. But the positive side is like it can also be a huge source of motivation. And
Right.
so I think with so many things, we have to get back to the reason why we did it. We have to and like the commitment. And I think that's oftentimes why so many people fall short of reaching their goals that they've set for themselves is
Mhm.
because they commitment becomes a little bit disposable, or they don't make it strong enough. They don't have that level of meaning behind it.
Right.
And so that was I just had to anchor back to that and be like, okay, this is
Yeah.
what's gonna happen either way.
Yeah. I love that. So, Stephanie, tell us a little bit about your coaching, how you help, because you can tell us the name of your coaching and tell us about it, how you
Yeah.
help.
So Renew Wellness is my business. There's several Renew Wellnesses out there. So this is renew-wellness.com is how to find
Okay.
it. I do so kind of if I talk a little bit about my background, right, with consulting, and have made a pivot, have always had a passion and desire for mentoring and coaching and developing others. So that's always been part of the work that I was doing. And really in the last about 6 years, it's shifted to being what I do. Like what I do is leadership development, working with executives, working with a lot of people in that kind of C suite and kind of the level below. Um, and in more of a corporate setting. On the wellness side, what's so interesting is in so many of my conversations, especially with women, right? There's these senior executive women that have accomplished so much, but yet they still wrestle with the health aspect of things. They still wrestle with reaching a weight that they know that they would be healthier, where they would feel better, right? And it's not because of lack of knowing what to do, right? It's
Mhm.
not lack of knowing what to do, but more so working through what are those things? Where are we getting in it, getting in our way? So I work with my clients on identifying what is it that's getting in the way? What is it to shape something very specific to them based on their unique strengths, based on what has worked well for them, what are their patterns, and help them develop simple systems that support them. Because it's those systems, those habits that we're building and really getting to a point where it's like boring, right? Where it's like systematized. It's and like when people get to the point where it's boring, it's beautiful, but it's also a risky spot because that's where people have a tendency to give up. They're like, "Oh, this doesn't really feel like anything exciting is happening," but that's where the progress is being made. And I do a lot of work around neuroplasticity as well and how we change that. There's this idea people say, "Oh, 21 days to form a new habit." That's actually not correct. Like 21 days is when you start to form some change in your brain, but it's not sustainable. It's actually 63 days that
Interesting.
before it's more sustainable on its own. But I'll tell you, the 21 days is when it's exciting and it feels kind of hard. Between 22 and 63, it gets really boring, but that's when people need to put in the work. So I've been trained by Dr. Caroline Leaf, who's just an amazing woman. It's been wonderful to know her as well. But about that idea of, kind of these trees that we have in our head, these thought trees. I even have this little kind of visual, like this is like a toxic tree, which basically, if you were to imagine, right, kind of twisted with deep roots, with something that is that it's been there a while. And so kind of unwinding that and replacing it with something that's pretty, that's like a tree that can thrive on its own, right? And so like this physiology that happens in the brain where it's literally changing the pathways and it's amazing. And so working with my clients to do that, and also so many people have this idea of it's just going to be a easy path, straight line down. The scale's just going to go down every week 2 pounds, and then it's just going to be, so even like run the math. Okay, well, how many weeks until I'm going to be like, it's messy. It's messy. And you know what? It's that roller coaster where you learn things, and really wanting people to start with the end in mind and have that maintenance mindset from the very beginning so that when they get there, it's just comfortable and that it's not, too many people get, like, if you consider it like a race, too many people get to the finish line and then, like that's it. They just,
Yeah.
it's a very much a lifestyle. And so I feel so privileged and blessed and excited to be able to do the work that I do, the conversations I get to have every day, the amazing people who I get to meet, and I learn so much from them. I mean, that's the thing. Like I am able to walk away and I'm learning new things, learning new like for example, I was coaching a president of a consulting firm a few weeks ago who mentioned this speed reading book. So now I'm like so excited about, oh, there's a speed reading. How much time would I save if I learned how to speed read? So to be able to meet people where they are, recognize what they need, remind them of the strengths that they have, remind them of what they have in them, and to be able to keep providing that encouragement. I just feel so privileged to be able to sit in that seat and do that and pull from the experience that I have in corporate positions as well as my own personal journey. You know, there's a saying of you're most equipped to help the person you used to be.
Yeah.
And so for me, that workaholic, overweight, people pleasing, right? Still things that I can struggle with, right? But I feel like I've
Mhm.
got the other side of it. And I just want to be able to
Yeah.
help other people do that too
Yeah.
on their journeys.
Yeah. I think that's a sign of a good coach too, that you're willing to learn and share and not be the, you do it my way and that's it type of person. So yeah, I love that. So if people want to get to know you and find out more about you, where would you like me to send them?
So my email is Stephanie at renew-wellness.com. My website is renew-wellness.com. I've also been more and more active on Facebook and
Okay.
Instagram, which there are links to those on my website.
Okay.
And also if someone's interested in just kind of my professional background, LinkedIn
Okay.
is a good place to go for that.
Awesome. So you're still working as a business consultant and you're doing the coaching.
Yes,
Are
yes.
you thinking down the line you're going to be moving away from the consulting and more into the coaching? Is that kind of the
So
long-term plan?
I have a problem in that I like doing everything. So I'm bringing it together. And that's one of the things that I feel like with being 50 is kind of the integration of everything. And
Mhm.
so working with the wellness aspect while while still working on the corporate side, but it's not just it doesn't have to be a senior executive who I'm working with. I rolled out a program in January that's online based that's meant to be very accessible. It's called Wellness Roadmap that walks people through recognizing their strengths, how to leverage that, but really want to reach and impact more and more people
Mhm.
and just see where the journey goes. I mean, I've been very blessed to be having some amazing opportunities that's very corporate focused
Mhm.
and working with leaders, which has been great, and bringing more of that wellness aspect into it, which is really my passion. So part of it too is taking some time to pause. And that's actually what I'm planning on doing. I'm taking a few months off later this kind of late summer
Nice.
and for that reason, just to kind of lean into it.
Yeah.
And most importantly, too, is just, especially having kids later in life, like I want to be there. Like I want to be there for my family. I want that flexibility. I
Mhm.
don't want to be saying no to these things that relate to my family. And so that's the biggest thing is to be in a spot where I can be present for them, where I'm showing up with them with kind of my best self, right, as much as
Yeah.
possible, right?
Right.
Again, not every day is that the case, but just to be
Yeah.
able to be there, and so just kinda really being open to what's ahead, and but just being really, really excited about the people I've been able to help through the wellness program and
Yeah.
through the wellness specific coaching.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think you are in a similar boat to probably a lot of the women listening out there, Stephanie, who had children later in life. And so we're in this phase where we're focused on ourselves and what we need and what we need to do, but we also have these young, little people to take care of as well. And I think it's wonderful how you're bringing everything together and looks like you're doing it all very well. So
Oh,
kudos
thank
to you.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Before we go, I'm so glad I get to talk to you more because I know you, but usually I have to say, well, before we go, but is there any one last little nugget of information or message you want to give our listeners?
Don't underestimate the small stuff, the little things, those little tweaks in how you think about things, those little changes that you can make. The 1%, what that looks like over time is huge. And so sometimes we can be overwhelmed. And sometimes if people have tendencies towards perfectionism or all or nothing, is put that aside and just see those little things. I also like to think, what are the time neutral things? What are the things that you can do that don't take any extra time. We already are so busy juggling so many things, right? Like what are those things? So that's where those little tweaks in the mind, those affirmations, right? The thinking about how can you change your thought patterns? How can you take a moment to do the Wonder Woman stand to change things like but just these little things and recognizing that awareness, right? Taking time to pause, which again is a little thing, but just taking 30 seconds to take a few deep breaths, experiment with it can make a
Love it.
difference.
I love that so much. Thank you so much, Stephanie. This has been wonderful. I've so enjoyed talking to you, and I know that I will talk to you again soon.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Kim. It's been wonderful.
Thank you for listening to Midlife with Courage. If you liked what you heard, I would love it if you would leave me a review. Or even better, send a link of this episode to a friend. Until next time, take care of your beautiful self.